Hi, Founder fam. This is Natasha, and we are back with another episode of Founder Unfiltered. Let's get into it. Nervous system regulation. It's something that I think, at least for myself, has only recently been coming into my realm as a founder and as an entrepreneur. And I have to say, like, hearing concepts around you can only grow and scale as much as your nervous system expands with that resonates. And also, on the other hand, there's a part of me that thinks, is this a new trend? Like all of this conversation around nervous system expansion? Because back in my years when I was a coach, when I coached for personal training and I was a nutrition coach and overall general wellness, I would talk about it from the standpoint of parasympathetic nervous system versus sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic being calm, more relaxed, focusing on things like ashwagandha and stress management and meditation. And then the sympathetic nervous system was where you're like, ah. And so to see it being used in the circles of people who are business building and people who are doing something different than the norm and doing something different than what's expected, that's been like an interesting surprise because I didn't expect the conversation around nervous system to be in these entrepreneurial circles, and yet it is. And so I'm like, is this a new thing, or is it just that as I'm further and further expanding and seeking growth, is it now the timing for me personally coming across my algorithm? I mean, I see it everywhere. It's on my feed, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, I think it's time to take note of it. And it's an interesting thing when you hear nervous system and somatic coaches talking about how it's really difficult to get to the level that you want to get to if your nervous system isn't in place. And it's a concept that feels very cerebral and very almost like woo woo and almost like beyond what I can even like I can hear what they're saying and take it in and understand it, but not really, if that makes sense. And that's the honest truth. But I will say this, a couple of weeks ago, I started more and more practicing like figuring out what my nervous system is doing, or maybe how I'm feeling when certain things come up. So a couple of weeks ago, I started tasking myself with reaching out to integrative medical clinics. That was one of my pathways with my business because I'm a brand strategist for wellness brands and for wellness founders. And then the other layer has been creating content, sometimes multiple times a day, for Instagram specifically and LinkedIn for wellness creators and wellness personal brands. And that's been a lot on my system. And I don't think I realized how much it was. And so I started implementing like taking walks in the middle of the day and having nothing to do with my digital, like not even listening to a podcast. I also started like going back to my old practice of like first thing in the morning, doing my morning pages, writing everything down, almost kind of like a digital detox sparingly, like throughout different parts of the day. And I have to say that by like taking myself away from like the constant content creation, the constant intaking of other people's content, and the constant like thinking about, I need to do this for my business, I need to do that for my business. If I need to grow, I need to do this. And like just be with myself. And I have to say, I now notice after doing this practice for a couple of weeks, I see now what the nervous system coaches mean about how it translates to my business. Because when I take those moments for myself, that hour in the morning, that hour or two middle of the day, and then again in the evening where I just eat my food mostly in silence, I relax. I might watch like an old episode of the Vampire Diaries, but just something that's very, whew. I notice that then when I go back into the content creation, this strategy around, okay, how am I going to like reach out to this next set of clients, building out new products and offerings, I notice that I'm so much more clear in order to see the pathway forward to scaling and growing. But when I'm in this like go, 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 go aspect, which has been pretty much been my regular My regular pace the past few weeks, I can see now that my nervous system was like, no, no, no. Like I was like, go, go, go. And my nervous system was like, no, no, no. And because of that, I am still somebody that's in overdrive, but I wasn't able to see all the things so clearly. So if you can't see things that clearly, then how can you build a strategy around it? You can't. And that ultimately limits my growth, right? And that goes back to the nervous system. Like I was in constant fighting, I guess, with it, fight or flight with it, instead of just like kind of like taking the driver's wheel of it and kind of pacing myself, allowing it to expand. And so that way, as my nervous system and how my body is reacting from a physical standpoint, being able to like create a pace for it instead of constantly being in overdrive has allowed me to like, when it comes to concepts and when it comes to strategy, things are so much more clear now. Where before I feel like I was constantly like, okay, I need to do this and now I need to do that and da, 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 and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm taking in what this person says, but I couldn't really piece it all together in like a clear, coherent way moving forward. And I notice now when I like take the time to myself, especially for me, for my nervous system, I'm noticing that when I take those digital breaks and go analog, I guess that's like the new term, analog wellness, I'm noticing that I'm much more clear and coherent in order to make the proper decisions. So I don't know if any of you are like that out there, but I will say it's not a woo-woo thing because I know it's a lot of talk in the woo-woo circles, but it really is kind of like from the neuroscience aspect, it does track like being able to divert. It's almost like diverting your attention from this thing that like has all of your attention and taking it for a little bit and putting it somewhere else so that when you go back to the thing that most needs your attention, you do it with like a fresh perspective, a fresh pair of eyes, in a much more relaxed state. So it's less and more whew. And that's how I notice my nervous system when it's like high and low. But for other people, it might be stagnation. Like your nervous system might be so burnt out, or you might feel so overmaxed, I guess is the word, that for some people, it's the opposite. It's stagnation. It's like standing on the edge of the cliff and not being able to do anything at all. It's basically being frozen in place. It's the flight. Like I'm usually in the fight, the go, go, go. And I can't often see things clearly, but a lot of other people are in the flight, which is like procrastination, like dragging your feet on something, like second guessing, living in the over perfectionism. So I think either way, the pendulum swings, whether it's fight or flight. Either way, if we can like take that time to center ourselves and focus on like, okay, what am I feeling right now? Am I spinning? Am I spiraling? If you are, then that's most likely your nervous system like speaking to you. And it's like, how do you get control over it? Listen, I'm not a nervous system expert, and maybe in the future I'll have somebody on who's talking with me that is, and they can kind of give more of the science around it, but I can describe it like how best I know it and how best I've experienced it. And for me it's kind of like a fluttering, or it's like multiple things going on in my brain until sometimes I'm like, whew, and then I have to take a step away. But like I don't want to get to that point. I don't want to get to that point of burnout. I want to be able to, before I get to that cliff of burnout, be able to be like, okay, Tasha, you're almost spinning, you're almost taking in a little too much digital information from the pros and the podcast warriors out there. Take a break, go for a walk, hug my dog Nala, like get a glass of water, read a quick book, like take a pause. And then I notice when I come back, I'm much more at peace. I'm much more relaxed. And then I'm able to do the things that I need to do. So, to wrap this up, from this incredible neuroscience person that I follow, and also a coach in the nervous system regulation. Both of them pretty much say the same thing, which I started this conversation with, and that's that like you can only grow as much as your nervous system expands. And in order to expand it, at least in my opinion, in my experience, it's been taking those pauses and then going back, grabbing the wheel of it, and then steering it pace by like steering it in my pace. I've noticed that's made the biggest difference, and I wish the same for you. All right. So cheers to growth, cheers to scaling, and cheers to having a successful 2026. We've also just entered into Q2. I cannot believe it. This is what, day 7 of April? Like, sheesh, where does the time go? But, anyways, we're in Q2. And I felt like, maybe sharing about my experience with nervous system regulation and hoping maybe it can help somebody else out there. So, best of luck to all of us. I'll see you again next week with another episode of Founder Unfiltered. Bye, guys.